review a Speedway Motors 620 gear on a full spool, see what it looks like. If we need to make any adjustments, we will. That way you'll know, in case you have to buy an entire gear, what this option looks like. So let's get started. So this is exactly the condition that it was delivered in. It has been sitting here at the house while we were down there at the Nationals, waiting on us to get back home. The cardboard looks pretty terrible, but they ship it in a carrier housing. So I don't know that it matters that much as long as the cardboard survives enough for the shipping label to get it to you. Anyway, yeah, because there's no packing or anything on this. But here is the housing. Yeah, so you can see, boy, that got whooped up. These things are not light. But let's see. It looks like that the actual bolt itself blew right through the housing on both sides. Wow, look at that. So, alright, so not the end of the world, but I'm going to have to put a great big fender washer or something if I want to actually bolt this up on something to ship it. Anyway, so there's that. And so this Speedway, this is an aftermarket housing. So it actually says Speedway on the housing here, right there. So it's completely new. And of course, the one it comes with the narrow yoke, like what the GM would use when you don't have to have the universal U-joint or that switches between Ford and Chevrolet. This is the narrow short. That's the one that this comes with. All right, so she's bolted in here. So let's get her up. I think it's got some like thread nuts or something in this plastic housing on the back side that actually holds it into the case. I've got a couple of these cases, and I never do actually bolt the gears in them. I just use them to sit the gear in, you know, so that it'll catch the oil and drip off and keeps it from getting dirty is all I ever use them for. Anyway, okay. Get this thing up out of here. I have no idea if these edges are sharp on it or not. Hopefully they're not. It's so heavy though. If it's got a sharp edge, as heavy as it is, it'll smash your finger and cut you pretty good. Alright, well I see where they use some dye to rub it in. Yep. Ooh, real good looking pattern. So here's what I want to do. I want to see how much preload total is on the pinion and the gear itself. Preload on the bearings. I'm just going to make sure that it's got some preload, you know, somewhere total in the range of 15 to 25 inch-pounds, something like that. Now, that does have some risk, so I'm looking at both of them together. When I build a new gear, I look at preload individually. I look at the preload on the pinion, I look at the preload on the main spool itself for the bearings. I look at them individually, and then I put it together and set the wear pattern. And I have a complete video on us building a gear, bare budget. I'll put the link on that on the video here, where you can check it out, because I'm talking about going through and looking at each one of those individually and how to tell whether or not you've got that adjusted up to get that load, because you've got to have load on those bearings. If you don't have load on the bearing, then when it gets under load in that helical cut, it twists. It'll twist the pinion if the pinion is not loaded correctly. It'll twist the spool if the spool's not loaded correctly. If it has too much load on it, then it's going to turn around. It's going to way overheat the bearing. It's going to really wear and overheat your gear oil, you know, and you're going to end up with, you know, stress fractures, and you're going to have failure of your gear a lot quicker, a lot shorter life of your bearings if you overload it. And it's sucking up horsepower by being overloaded too tight. You know, so I just want to make sure that it's kind of in the range, but I need to pop the pinion seal out to do this. The pinion seal can really fool you, especially a new pinion seal. A well-used, worn pinion seal is not really going to add much load to it, but a new pinion seal can really drag on that yoke at first. So I don't want that to fool us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this thing up here. All right, so I'm going to pop this seal out right quick where that we can see what this preload is. See if I can get it out of here without tearing it up. Should be able to. Oh, there it goes. Let's see if I can get it to come on up now. There it goes. Yeah, I think I saved it. Alright. Now, we did that because we've got to put that back on there. And we have to put this on here so that we can load the bearing down onto the solid spacer so that we can tell what we've got. That's really tight, y'all. I'm bumping 50. And you can't use a clicker for this. You have to use a beam. Yeah, I'm running 40 to 50. And so, you know, maybe if it was around 35, I would have just stopped and said, ah, we're okay. But let's separate it out. And let's separate it out. Let's not take a chance on it. So, first thing I'm going to need to do, because this is a 620. Ooh, I got that tight, didn't I? Now, what am I talking about when I say separate it out? Okay, I'm going to drop the pinion out. We're going to check the preload on the pinion separately. I'm going to need to adjust this gear. I'm not happy. I'm not happy with it. But I'm going to need to move this ring gear over, because the 620 is not going to just drop out. It's going to hang up. So we need to take this out. Go. Okay. Look at that. It had Loctite on it. Yeah. That had Loctite on it. So I am going to move this ring gear over. How am I going to move this ring gear over? Oh, there it goes. I'm going to move this ring gear over by turning both of the adjusters in the direction that moves the ring gear weight by the same amount. That's going to keep them set to the same load. So first one I'm going to move is the one that's on the back. So I'm going to come. So I'm going to take this ring gear and I'm going to go this way because the pinion's on this side. So I'm going to move the ring gear away from it where I can get the ring gear out. And the reason that it won't just drop out is because that's a helical cut, and so there's a curve on it. So that curve is like got it caught. So I need a little bit more slack than what, like if you've got one adjusted upright, then they won't hardly come apart. They'll come apart once your gear ratio gets lower, but when you get a real steep gear ratio, I think that's when you start running into trouble. So, I don't quite have the clearance here that I should. Oh, so I'm going to make a mark. I'm going to make a mark where I know where that is. Yep. And then I'm going to turn it a revolution out. Turn that up, knock you down. And now I'm going to turn this one in by a turn. So I'm keeping them lined up. Mark it so I know which one it was on. And now this one started out easy, and as I come back around, I should feel it tighten up. There's very little stretch on this case though, I bet. Let's see how much stretch is on this case. Now what do I mean when I say stretch on the case? So as I tighten this up and I'm pushing on, so as I tighten that down, I'm pushing down on the spool, and that starts stretching that case out. And well, if you measure case stretch, which you can set up a dial indicator and measure how much you stretch the case apart. Like literally as I tighten that down, I stretch that case apart. Like 8 to 10,000 is what you're stretching. We're not that precise. Yeah, and see, look, I got down to literally 1 hole's move, and that should be probably more like 2 holes movement, but anyway. Okay, so I got that moved over. Now I gotta, y'all can't see that, I'm sorry. So I moved this one in and I moved this one out by exactly 1 full turn each. Now we have a bunch of backlash, okay? So that backlash is gonna let me get that pinion out. That's how that works. Come back around here. Let's get you out of there. Okay. These are just grade 5. There is no Loctite, there is no lock nut, there is no lock washer, there is no lock nothing on that. I don't know that I agree with that, but hey, it is what it is. Now, there. Okay, what we got here? How's this look? This is all dry. Dry, 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 dry. Is there any light oil on the bearings? No, they got a shim pack. They definitely picked some shims to set the pinion up. So I got a couple shims here, not just a standard one or anything. It doesn't appear that they oiled these bearings with even light machine oil. You're supposed to have light machine oil on these bearings, even just to set it up. So, all right, so let's see just what the pinion is. All right, yeah, we got a lot of preload in that pinion right there. Let's see just what it is. All right. Yeah, we're sitting on 40. We're sitting on, yeah. Yeah, that's too much, y'all. We're sitting on 40. If it'd been 25, you know, with no seal or anything, I'd be like, yeah, let's go with it. But no, that's too much. There it goes. All right. Come here, Betsy. All right. So, yep, we got a solid spacer on there. All right. Sure. Yep, that looks fine. What kind of bearings are they? China. Go figure. Huh. Oh. Okay. Yeah, they're dry. They're dry as a bone. Dry as a bone, y'all. Alright, let's see about our spacer here. Well, I hate to say it, y'all. I'm not impressed. Alright, y'all, so I'm looking here. I got a solid spacer. There's no shim pack in there. It's just the spacer itself. Yeah, there's no shim pack stuck on this side. So they're just using a solid spacer. And they could be lapping these. They could have something where they got an oversized one and they're lapping it down. And I mean, that works. You know, you could do that. That is 510. And that thing was tight, tight, tight. And they may be lapping these down a lot to make sure they get a tight pinion setup, because a tight pinion bearing setup will live. You know, it's not gonna, you're not gonna have gear failure, but it's gonna run hotter. It's gonna cook your gear oil that much quicker. It's gonna eat, of course, heat is it taking up horsepower. So I'm not liking that. I'm not liking that at all. That needs a spacer in it. And they would probably tell you that all of these are being lapped, you know, custom fit and everything. Does that really in practice actually happen that way, or do they all just kind of get cut to whatever the smallest typically is, and they're all within a few thousandths, and you know, it's like it becomes this, you know, they just always do them this way and it works. And in reality, 2 or 3 thousandths here and there can make a big difference. You know, like 1,000ths is like 5 inches of preload, so like 4 thousandths can be like 20 inches of preload. So like, yeah, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. So let me see if I got any bushings. I had to dig around a little bit, but I come up with some options. Let's see what the thinnest thing I've got is, because that's probably what I'm going to do. All right, that's 12 right there. I'm going to have to lap that. I'm going to have to lap it. Dadgummit. Pain in the butt. And it don't look like it's been lapped at all. Because see, I'm going to go from 510. Yeah, I'm going to go from 510 to 522. I need to go from like 510 to like 513 or something. So I've got to cut some material off. Oh, what a pain, what a pain, what a pain, what a pain, what a pain. See what we're doing here. So I got a piece of Lexine here and some 320 sandpaper. I'm going with 320 because, I mean, it's not a bearing surface. I need to cut metal off. I got quite a bit cut, so 320 is the number. A little bit of lightweight oil. I do this a while and then I'll check and it'll like have took a foul off. And I'm trying to take 10,000ths off. I've got like a 12 and a half, a 13, 14. That's where my spacers, like my shims, they go like 12, 13, 14, 15. That's the ones I've got. And I know I need at least, I don't know, probably 3. So let me see where I'm at, because I was going to get this to 5. It wasn't 510. 510 was definitely tight. 510 was like cracking 40-inch pounds. And I was like, yeah, it's no good. So I was thinking if I got this to 500, or right in there around 500. So that's 501. 501 and a 12 would be 513. That would add 3. I feel like that I have got this right. So I'm making sure I don't have any debris or anything fooling me. Make sure. No little pieces, no little sediments, no nothing. I feel like I feel like that this is right. Guys, you know what I just realized? You know what I just realized? There's no splash washer. Which wouldn't affect, it wouldn't affect what we're doing on clearance. But this unit doesn't have a splash washer. There's a washer that's supposed to be in front of that yoke. No. Everything I've done is right here. This unit had no splash washer. You've got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding. What am I talking about? Look. It's supposed to have one of these. Right here. That deflects your oil off the bearing and keeps it from hitting against the seal like crazy and creating premature leaks. It did not have a... Wow! Speedway! Struggling with y'all. Thank goodness. I'm going to go ahead and put it in here because... Oh, I can't even... Oh, that's not even the right one for this. I got to find the right splash washer. I gotta find the right splash washer. I've got some. Alright, back on track. I looked, I didn't have another splash washer. This one was just a little bit tight, so I just clearanced it where it would get over those splines. It wasn't quite wanting to go over those splines, but I got it. So, yeah, let me go ahead and drop that bad boy in there. That's about 12 or 13. So I'm going to drop from that 14 thousandths to that 13 thousandths. And that's going to have me right in there around 20, and I'm going to leave her be. Alright, let's see what we got. Yep, that's us right there. That's 20. That's 20 on new bearings. That's where I'm leaving it. Yep. Yep. That's where we're leaving, right there. 20 on the bearing, on the pinion. So, now that I've got that, I'm going to take that off. And we have got the oil splash washer in there now. And we have beat that pinion up just a little bit on the edges. That's okay. If there's any concern at all, I'm going to put just a little bitty thin red silicone ring on this outside edge. Just a little bit. Just in case I've bent it in anywhere at all. I've got me a little safety margin. Because I pried on it a little bit. I pried on it. It's going to all squeeze out, but it's going to squeeze to the outside, not the inside, so it'll be fine. The other thing I'm going to do, while I'm putting my hands on it, I'm going to put some oil on that freaking seal. I can't believe they didn't put any oil on that seal. Come on, folks. Y'all can do better than that. Okay. Y'all, I'm going to need a seal press to do this. Sure as all, I might can get this thing. It's a big old seal. Yeah, I can walk it in. Oh yeah, there we go. Clean all the goober juice off. And that bad boy right there. Alright, so I got that. Little oil on there. Little oil down in here. Looks good to me. Yeah, what is it? Do as I say, not as I do. I am just fine with using that pinion nut right there, y'all. Yep. I ain't lying. That's the reason I use the solid. I like nothing but solid spacers. Because I put them together, I hammer them down. If I have to change a yoke out for something long to short, whatever, I don't worry about it. And they ain't failed me yet. But, you know, technically, if you're doing it right and everything, you'll never use one of these pinion nuts twice. You'll have one that you use for setting up like this, and then you'll always put a new one on the last time and everything. Yeah, okay. And I suppose maybe if you were doing a crushed, crushed bushings and everything, that'd probably be the right thing to do. But it's just not that important to me. I've had too much success, and this is just not a factor for me. So, it is what it is, y'all. Okay. Now, we got it back in there. And see, I can feel like that seal has drag on it, so it definitely raised that number. Okay, that's done. Now, we got to deal with this spool over here. So, I'm just taking my hand and feeling here, and I don't feel much preload on this. And there's two ways to go about doing this. There's case stretch that like you can measure to tell how much preload's on the bearings. Or you can actually measure the load itself in friction. Okay, so this is the easy way. So I got a floating axle here. I'm gonna just stick it all the way through. So there it sits, okay, right there. And I could just take and I could spin it, and I probably need, 5 to 10 inch-pounds is what I probably need here. Ooh, you know what? I've got more than I realized. I've got 10 inch-pounds. Okay. Well, about 8. Yep. Yep. So I got 8 to 10 inch pounds right there. And I'll show you the other way. This is not really the right tool for it. You can kind of get by and make it work, but what you would do is you'd have to snap onto one side and then set up your dial indicator on the other, and then unload it to where you know it doesn't have pressure on it, you know, with your dial indicator set on 0, and then you're going to tighten it down until you see 10 thousandths, you know, for example, 10 thousandths. And remember, it just happens they're kind of the same numbers, like 10 inch-pounds, like on load, and 10 thousandths. They're not the same, it's just they happen to be the same number. But anyway, but you would actually take the dial indicator and you would measure the load like that, like stretching it out. And I think it's 8 to 10 thousandths is what you're after there, but no, this is fine. I just did an inch-pound, so that's fine. That's fine. All right, so I've got it back 10 right now, so I can go ahead and drop the pinion back in it. Only thing I'm going to do while I've got it out here, I'm going to drop a little bit of oil on that roller bearing right there. So the support bearing right in the bottom of that pinion. Drop a little oil on that. All right. Okay, and I think my shim stack was good. My pattern looked good, so sit right there for a second. Make sure all this is clean. And you don't silicone this because it's got an O-ring. I have silicone them before when they were really worn and beat up, but you normally don't silicone this right here because it has an O-ring, and there's a drain back in it, so you don't want that silicone to block your drain back. Get out of the way. Okay. So make sure these are all clean, these shims. And this is what, same deal as like the shims on the bushing right there, y'all. The shim really affects how this thing runs. You know, 1 or 2 thousandths right here changes the pattern fairly significantly. So you don't want to mess a shim up, or oh, it'll be okay without this one, or let's throw that one away. Don't do any of that. Like, you've got to have it. You have got to have it. Okay, not only that, but when I put this together, I'm going to take these shims now that I got them, and I'm putting them up here where they don't accidentally pinch them. I'm going to put them on it. I don't want to bend them, I don't want to pinch them, I don't want to mess them up. I want them all to act nice and happy. So I've got them up, now I can drop it in, just like this. Come on. Come on. And turn it a little bit. There it goes. Yep. Yeah, just like that. So see, I got a lot of slack right now, but that's okay. That's okay. Line the washers up. All right. And we're going to put some Loctite on these bolts, y'all. We're going to put a little bit of Loctite. Not a lot. A little bit. A bit more hurting. You know, a beam bar, you can feel stuff with a beam bar you don't feel with a clipper. Because, I mean, you can watch that needle, and you can literally feel that bolt start stretching. It's weird how that works. But this older equipment like this, there's something special about it. Yep, you can tell because you can see it like right up on that 40. You know, it's like getting right on that 40 and you're pulling and you see that it starts yielding. And you know, it's like, oh, I got to get 40, and you feel it start yielding and you're like, whoa, stop right there. You know, it's like you get a precision. It's crazy. You get a little bit of precision like this that you can't get with just a old cheap old clicker. Okay, now, the only thing we got left here is we're going to bring our backlash back up. Because remember, we spun this thing out a turn. We spun the spool over, you know, 1 round. So now I have to come out with this side first, right? This axle out of the way. All right, so I brought the spool back over. I turned both sides the same amount, so the load that's in the bearing stayed the same. And I'm back, and I have that 10 thousandths backlash there. Now, my expectation is that this pattern is exactly the same, but let's not take any chances. We'll look at it right quick and make sure. Ooh, I just got blue all over my fingers. That's going to be on there for a couple of days. Ugh. This stuff is horrendous. It's hot, is what it is. All right. They got a pattern all the way around this thing. We'll just put a little bit right here. Just a sanity check, just to make sure that we have not done something stupid. Boy, that thing's got some load on it. Alright, let's get her up here and see how we look. Oh yeah, we're fine. We're right down in there where we want to be. And again, I talk a lot more in depth in our other Ford 9-inch video where we set up. But we're right back. That pattern is exactly the same. We're good. We're right in the middle, you know, on the drive. Yeah, we're just a little bit low to the toe, which is ideal. It's perfect. Run it. It's perfect. And last but not least, don't forget to put your locks back in. I'm going to put a little Loctite on them as well. They had some Loctite on them. I'm going to put some Loctite back on them. Lock them bad boys right back in place. Alright, so Speedway Motors. Overall, product review. Let's see, shipping wise, it was here, like they said it was going to take 2 weeks to build. It showed up like, I think 5 days later. So the order must have just went straight into the build shop, and then they built it and shipped it out. I mean, really quick. Of course, that may depend on time of year and everything, and how backed up they are. But they shipped it out really quick. No issues there. Of course, it come in a carrier container for it, and it was fine. The box looked terrible, but you know, the container itself held on to it just fine. You know, the seal being dry, no oil in the bearings. Not really so much a big deal because we're going to fill it up with gear oil before we run it, yada yada yada. But it makes me question, how did they set it up? Or did they set it up and check it if they didn't put any oil in the bearings, right? And then the pinion seal being completely dry, that would possibly take some life away from that seal because it's dry, like that outside dust ring of it, that would never get oil, you know, until it got to a point where the dirt was being ingested, you know, and then it was just failing. Because, you know, it being completely dry, the yolk on here was completely dry, so the two rubbing together, you know, tearing that inside, you know, wearing it away from heat, and then the dirt goes into it, and then when the dirt gets to the inside seal, then it starts making it fail, then the gear oil starts coming out of it. So I didn't like that. And then really the cardinal sin, I would say, the thing that I would be like, ooh, would you just buy a Speedway Motors gear and put in your car? It was missing the splash washer. I don't see that as optional, y'all. I don't see a splash washer as optional. That bearing blows oil directly onto the seal if the splash washer is not present. So like that one right there, that was the showstopper for me. That was like, oh, you know, it's like, I'm really glad. Now, setup wise, with it being tight like that, I kind of get that because they're selling these gears for the street. You know, people expect them to last 20, 30 years, whatever. You know, they set them up to like the max tightness on the bearings and everything. It's all going to run hotter. It's all going to take more horsepower for a period of time. It's eventually going to wear and work really well. For a racing track, you know, racing application like me, no, I don't want to be building all that heat and taking all that horsepower away. I want it just tight enough to handle deflection, no more. And so I did back off on the preload on the pinions some. Probably about 1 to 2 thousandths is all I backed that off It didn't have a shim stack in it, so I had to actually lap and then put a shim in, so that was kind of a pain. The load on the spool was fine. The backlash was fine. The heel and toe pattern was fine. So like on the street, this gear would have lasted fine. And on the street, you know, maybe it wouldn't have leaked gear oil for quite some time. I don't know. I have a problem with the seal having been completely dry like that. And I have a problem with the splash washer missing. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have an immediate failure. But you may have a failure sooner in its life. But it's years after you've bought it. So it's definitely not going to be some warranty claim or anything. Well, I don't think there's any warranty anyway. But you know what I'm saying. Like, you're not going to directly associate it to it. Do I think that's intentional by Speedway? Not at all. I don't think that's intentional. This may be their standard process, or it may be that they're building a lot of gears and, you know, it's just they're moving really fast and that one missed it. I can't say. I am open to feedback, you know, on this and what your experience has been with them. But I had it, I bought it in new. I never buy whole gears. It's the first entire built gear I have ever purchased. Ever. I always build my own gears. So I don't have anything to compare it to, so that's just me and you just going through it together. Leave me your comments and your feedback, and if you like a product review like this that's just candid and honest, thumbs up, y'all. And hey, if you're not subscribed, subscribe, folks. This is good stuff. All right, I'll see you next time, because we got a lot going on the Camaro, and Rachel's going to be driving it again at the new racetrack that just opened. We're hoping to do a lot better, because I have forgot about how I drive, and we're trying to set the car up for how she drives. So stay tuned.